Okay, let's dive into this. What actually happens when, a late night comedy interview just completely goes off the rails?
Right, something that's usually pretty light, easy banter.
Exactly. And today we're looking right at that kind of explosion, the interview everyone's talking about between Jimmy Kimmel and White House press secretary Karoline Leavitt on his show.
And what's really interesting is our source here. It's a written account, almost like a play-by-play. It really captures the mood, how fast things escalated.
Yeah, it gives you more than just watching a clip, doesn't it?
Totally. A different layer of understanding.
Because you think, okay, political guest comes on, maybe some, safe jokes, talking points, the usual formula.
Pretty standard stuff.
But this account describes it like a real fire just erupting unexpectedly.
And to really get it, we need to think about the people involved, right?
Okay.
First, you've got Jimmy Kimmel. Experienced host. He's known for being charming, but also kind of snarky. It's his turf, his format.
Right. Familiar ground for him.
Then there's Karoline Leavitt, youngest ever White House press secretary. And the account paints this picture of her coming in very composed.
It uses words like gladiator, mentions a razor-sharp blue suit, a calm, steel-ledged smile, almost like she was armored up mentally.
Prepared, definitely. It makes you wonder, was that composure all strategy? Or is that just how she operates under pressure?
Good question. Maybe a bit of both. Her job demands that kind of presentation, I guess.
Probably. But the source suggests a real, unflappability. And that's key, that contrast with what everyone expected.
So our mission here really is to pick apart those key moments.
Yeah, figure out when exactly it fractured.
And look at the bigger picture, too, what this clash means for media, politics, how they intersect now.
Okay, so scene set, interview starts. And the written account says, yeah, it began pretty normally.
Standard political guest. Clever quips. That's safe zone.
They talked about the usual things, gas prices, student loans, the economy.
And Leavitt, the account stresses, was handling it all very professionally. Composed.
Seemed confident, right? Navigating it smoothly.
But even then, the source mentions this undercurrent of rising tension, like static in the air before a storm.
Exactly. That feeling when things are maybe a little too calm. Something's got to give.
And it did give, didn't it, with that question from Kimmel?
Oh, yeah. That was the spark. Asking her, do you actually believe the stuff you say at those press briefings? Or is it just acting?
Oof. That's direct.
Very. And the audience apparently laughed at first. Maybe thought it was just part of the act, late night edge.
But her response wasn't part of the act?
Not at all. Straight up, unwavering. Said she speaks for the president, shares facts, period.
And that's when the mood shifted. The account says the room got chilled, heavier.
Yeah, the laughter died down. You could feel the change, unease setting in.
Kimmel tried to recover with more sarcasm, right? About facts being a bold word in Washington.
He did, but Levi didn't bite. She came back sharp.
What did she say again? Something about joking versus leading?
Uh-huh. Maybe that's why you're behind a desk and I'm standing at the White House podium. That definitely landed.
Wow. And the audience, how did they react to that?
Split. The source says you heard gasps, some cheers, but also boos. Suddenly it wasn't just tense, it was volatile.
Okay, so the gloves are off now.
Pretty much. Yeah. Kimmel then pivots, drops the sort of jokey angle, and goes harder, hitting her with criticisms.
On the economy, the border, approval ratings, the tough stuff.
Yeah, trying to push her back, maybe reassert control by going on the attack.
But she didn't fold.
Nope. Stay cool. Said something like, criticism is part of the job.
And then turned it back on him.
She did. Questioned what he contributes beyond jokes, memes, sarcastic monologues.
Yeah.
Ouch.
That's a direct challenge to his whole platform, really.
It is. It highlights that shift, Late night isn't just laughs anymore. It's seen as a political arena. And she wasn't playing by the old rules. She was defending her ground.
Then came the clip moment. Kimmel plays this bit of footage.
Right, showing her hesitating on an inflation question from months before.
And the audience loved that. The source says they roared, delighted.
Yeah, gotcha. But her response just poured cold water on it.
How so?
Super dismissive. Call it a 5-second clip taken out of context. And then, that zinger, maybe you should apply for a job at CNN.
Whoa. Okay, that's personal now.
Definitely escalated things. The account describes the room dividing even more. Some laughing, some just shocked.
And Kimmel, how's he taking this?
Visibly annoyed, according to the source, accuses her of misleading people, defending chaos, which leads them right into the core argument, doesn't it?
Yeah. Truth, outrage, entertainment. What's the purpose here?
Exactly. Leavitt hits him with, you don't want answers, you want outrage. Says his show thrives on anger, division.
And then she basically says late night is for fun, not facts.
Pretty much. Entertainment, not information.
That's a direct challenge to how these shows are often perceived, right?
Yeah.
As influencing public thought.
Absolutely. So this isn't just banter anymore.
Yeah.
It's something else. The source calls it an unscripted, unfiltered political explosion live on national television. You really feel the rawness.
Must have been chaos backstage.
Apparently. Producers scrambling, talking about cutting the feed.
But they didn't.
No. The director reportedly said, let it roll. Called it history.
Wow. Gutsy call.
Then Leavitt does something really interesting. She turns away from Kimmel.
To the audience.
Directly to the audience. Tells him, don't let comedians decide what's true for you. Think for yourselves.
Bypassing him completely, how did that go over?
Like a bomb went off, according to the source. Applause, boos, screams all at once. Total chaos. People were invested.
Kimmel tries to jump back in about dodging questions.
Yeah, real questions, and she fires right back. Something like, maybe ask better questions and I won't have to dodge. Sharp.
So it's not just sparring anymore. The source uses the phrase knife fight.
Yeah, it got serious. She accuses him of twisting things for laughs. He defends his role as just being a comedian.
But she counters that, right, about not having a laugh track.
Uh-huh. Says she faces tough questions daily, no script, highlighting the different pressure, the different realities of their jobs.
And the tension just keeps building until Kimmel drops the jokes entirely.
Completely. Backed into a corner, maybe? Asks if she really thinks she's serving the public. Accuses her of just spinning for a president who can barely form a sentence.
Oh, wow. That's harsh. The room must have frozen.
Dead silent, the account says. You see Leavitt just tighten her jaw.
But she responds.
Oh, she responds. Calmly, but forcefully. Says at least the president isn't sitting behind a desk throwing cheap insults for applause. Adds that leading is hard, mocking is easy.
The source calls that a knockout blow.
Feels like it, reading the description. Kimmel tries to backtrack a little, says he invited her for a conversation.
And she calls him out on that, too.
Instantly.
Yeah.
No, you invited me for a fight, she says, and I came to defend the truth. Then tells him, maybe stick to celebrity gossip if real debate makes him uncomfortable.
Ouch. And that's when...
That's the mic drop moment. Literally. Calmly unclips her microphone, places it down, and just walks off stage.
Leaving Kimmel speechless.
Pretty much. The feeling described is that, in that moment, she'd won the war. Just total command of her exit.
So the immediate aftermath must have been intense.
Everywhere. The source says it was plastered across their front pages the next morning. You couldn't avoid it.
And reactions fell along predictable lines, I imagine.
Mostly, yeah. Conservative commentators hailed her as a hero. Tough. Standing her ground.
While liberal ones maybe saw her as combative, defensive.
Often, yes. But the key thing was everyone was talking about it. It cut through the usual noise.
What about Levi herself? Does she comment afterwards?
At her next press briefing, yeah. Said she had no regrets, stood by her actions. I showed up with respect. I left with my dignity. That line caught on.
And Kimmel.
He actually issued an apology later. Said he crossed the line, was rude and sorry.
How does she respond to the apology?
Very briefly. Maturely, actually. Just said, that's what grown-ups do. They own their mistakes. End of story. From her side.
Interesting. And wasn't there something about Oprah?
Yeah, a really unexpected detail from the source. Apparently, Oprah sent Levi a personal handwritten letter.
Seriously, what did it say?
Praising her grace and strength.
Yeah.
Walking away like that. Which really speaks to how that specific action resonated beyond just the politics.
So, looking bigger picture, longer term, what's the impact been?
Well, according to the source, Levi's profile definitely rose. She started getting invited to college lectures, public speaking things, online debates.
So that one interview significantly boosted her visibility.
It appears so. It became a defining moment for her, in a way.
And the core takeaway, the narrative that stuck.
Seems to be about her standing her ground, speaking her version of the truth and refusing to play the game in a media world often built on, as the source puts it, cheap shots and viral outrage. Choosing to walk away.
And the source suggests the ripples are still spreading out.
Yeah, the full consequences, the shifts this might represent, are still kind of unfolding.
Okay, so summing up this deep dive, that Kimmel Leavitt interview really feels like a landmark moment, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Where all those lines, entertainment, politics, news, information, just got incredibly blurry.
With effects that were felt immediately and are still developing.
Right. It wasn't just another awkward interview.
So now you, listening, hopefully have a much deeper take on it all. Beyond the headlines, seeing the dynamics, the power plays.
Yeah, the actual blow-by-blow and what might have been going on beneath the surface.
Which leaves us with a big question to chew on, maybe.
Always good to end with one of those.
What is the role of late-night comedy now in how we talk about politics, how we get information?
Does this whole episode signal some kind of shift, either in the shows themselves or just how public figures decide to engage with them?
Yeah. And what does it really mean when something set up for, easy laughs suddenly sparks such a huge, serious debate about truth itself?
A lot to think about there.